1. This happened well over 10 years ago, but every so often, I remember it and smile because it's a nice memory to me, no matter how fuzzy the details are. A bit of backstory. I went to a school that was over 3.5 miles from my house, since it was the only school with a gifted program. I think my mom didn't drive me to school because of her job at the time, but there was a bus stop to get to my school at the other school that was a little under a mile from my house. So every morning she would get me ready, and then we'd get in her car and drive to the bus stop. I'd get out to wait for the bus, and she'd leave when the bus came. Here's where the story starts, finally. At the time of this story, probably 2nd grade, I was on horrible terms with a girl in my class. I forget who bullied who, but eventually we made up. Enter her older brother and his friend. I think they were in 6th grade. I remember them being significantly taller than me. I have no idea why, but one day, they decided that every day at the bus stop while we were waiting for the bus or our rides, they were going to bully me. It started out kinda small, calling me names regarding my weight, calling me weird, etc. I've always been a beast, I'll admit that. I was also autistic. But I wouldn't be diagnosed for a few more years, despite my mom fighting for a diagnosis since I was in any sort of schooling. What they said hurt me, but I never showed it. And then it escalated. It had probably been a few months by this point, and they hadn't stopped the bullying. It was another afternoon, and I was waiting for my mom, trying to ignore them, smushing berries from the bush beside the school doors with my fingers. I don't know what sparked it, but I heard laughing as the brother of the girl I previously had issues with grabbed onto one of the pillars and pretended as if he was being sucked in by something. That something was me. He said, "She has her own gravitational pull," and some other things that implied I was as big as a planet. His friend had joined in at this point. I tried to hold it together, but I couldn't. I cried in silence. And when my mom pulled up, I got in the car. She asked me what was wrong, and I completely broke. I explained through sobs that the boys who were still at the bus stop were bullying me, and I like to imagine that this made my mom see red. Things are a bit fuzzy here, but I believe my mom called the bus garage and bus coordinator person, told them the situation, and a few days later the boys stopped showing up at the bus stop. I forget who told me, but I found out that she had managed to get them kicked off the bus for the rest of the year. From then on, I looked up to my mom more than I had before, and I felt so much closer to her. Sadly, she's not here to help me anymore, but now I can stand up for myself without her help. Rest in peace, Mom. 2. Recently, a meetup with some old schoolmates jogged my memory about a bit of cheeky compliance from my days as a student of computer engineering. I was part of a computer engineering study association in the Netherlands. Wondering what a study association is? Well, it's like a fraternity for a specific study, but not all about parties and drinking. It's more about organizing enlightening guest lectures, assisting teachers with study-related events, and helping first-year students navigate the curriculum. One of our annual traditions was hosting a weekend getaway for first-year students just before the school year commenced. This event aimed to help them connect with their peers before classes began, all while having some fun and maybe convincing them to join our association. Most freshman computer engineering students weren't big on drinking and partying, so our weekend typically consisted of enjoyable campus activities and a cozy evening campfire. On the opposite end of the spectrum was our sisters' study association. Let's call them Other ASSO. They represented the students in less tech-related computer studies within our facility, like IT management, security, front-end design, and so on. Compared to us, Other ASSO had a massive member count. For the first-year students, they organized a week filled with parties, alcohol, and party-related games. Fortunately, they were located in the main university building in the neighboring city, so we rarely crossed paths. Each year, they received the contact list for first-year students starting at the main university building. while we got the list of first-year computer engineering students. Our list had about 80 students, while theirs had around 300. We could contact these students via mail and phone to promote our first-year weekend, and we usually managed to gather a cozy group of 10 or 15 students to join us. However, disaster struck when the facility accidentally sent both lists to both associations. We decided to meet with other ASSO and politely ask them to focus on their own students to avoid poaching from our weekend. Their response in essence was, "It's not a problem that you guys only promote to computer engineering students. We are a faculty-wide event, and we promoted the entire faculty, which now includes computer engineering." This was disheartening. We lacked the resources and manpower to compete with their large-scale promotions. It seemed like we'd be lucky to get 5 students to sign up. As we brainstormed our next move, I suggested, why not take their advice? If they claim to be faculty-wide, why don't we become one ourselves? What followed was a thing of beauty. We designed a new website promoting our event as the ultimate weekend getaway for all computer-related studies. We crafted new flyers and worked tirelessly to be the first to reach the incoming students before other ASSO could send out their promotions. The fallout was swift, taking only half a day after we launched our campaign. They contacted us frantically, demanding to know why their first-year students were already signing up for another faculty-wide event. We calmly responded that we were merely following their example, and were expanding our reach faculty-wide as well. After an awkward pause, they asked if we could stick to our lane. We reiterated our initial proposal. They promote their studies and we promote ours. They accepted. In the end, we sent out a message suggesting that students studying at the main building might find it more enjoyable to attend other ASSOs a week away, and vice versa. It turned out to be a fantastic first-year weekend getaway for everyone involved. 3. Back in 2014, I, a 19-year-old male, got accepted into the Disney College program. I was assigned 3 other roommates and worked there for 8 months per the original offer or contract or whatever. One of the apartments we were put in was designated as a non-alcohol building. We would have random inspections with a 24-hour notice. It didn't matter how old you were. If alcohol was caught in your apartment, all of your roommates, including you, would get kicked out of the program and sent home within 2 days. Another one of the rules was we could not make spare keys for safety reasons. It was a great time, and I loved working there until we got a 5th roommate. We were aware that this could happen during our time at the college program, so we dealt with it. Our 5th roommate was a guy from Italy, Gabe. I believe he was somewhere between 19 and 21. I want to start off by saying that I was welcoming to a new roommate. I was making a lot of friends from different countries while working at Disney, and I thought this was a great opportunity to make another international friend. I'll admit that I thought Gabe was cute. An average height himbo with black hair and that Italian stash. Alas, he was straight and real popular among the female cast members. Being a young Italian guy in Orlando will get you pretty much anybody. Very quickly, I learned that Gabe was not a decent guy. He was one of the kind of straight guys who would go to a gay club to find straight women. I know this because I was invited to the club where he ditched me, and I never saw him again that night. He would say that he is from Venice, Italy, but in reality he lived in one of the towns outside of it. From then on, I didn't want to hang out with him, and I was happy to leave it at that. A few weeks go by, and I'm starting to get really annoyed with Gabe. Multiple times I would hear him and whatever girl of the week he was having sex with in the living room on the singular couch that we all shared. There were very thin walls, and I could hear everything from my bed. He would bring cans of beer to the apartment and just leave them there for days. We managed to throw away the cans before inspection time, but it was the last thing he did that set me on this petty revenge path. One day I was at our apartment, relaxing and playing video games like I normally would. The front door opens, and I pause the game to see who's coming in, when I realize that it's a random girl and not any of my male roommates, I start yelling, "Who the hell are you?" She was just as surprised as me to see that someone was in the apartment. She gets flustered and says that Gabe sent her here to grab his phone charger. I notice that she is also one of the foreign cast members like Gabe, because her English wasn't fluent. I told her Gabe didn't tell any of us that she was coming to the apartment. I text Gabe to tell the girl to go ahead and grab the charger, but give me the spare key she was given. She walks out and Gabe eventually replies and confirms her story. At this point I am furious because any of the girls could have walked into the apartment and stolen something, and we would have never known who it was. So I text my original roommates, let them know what he's done and what I'm about to do. I remember that Gabe left a can of alcohol in the fridge, and I take a picture of it. Perfect. I take the spare key up to the security gate to let them know what had happened, and show them the text saying it's a spare. At this time, I didn't know that he could possibly be deported because this would interfere with his work visa. I didn't care. I just wanted him out of the apartment. A day passes by, and I see Gabe back at the apartment. He doesn't say anything. He just grabs a few clothes and leaves again. The day after that, I get a call from the college program counselors asking me to come by and formally tell them about Gabe. I didn't go into specifics about the girls he slept with and the other behaviors. I just gave them the straight facts and evidence. It turned out that was enough. Per the rules of the program, Gabe had 2 days to get his stuff together and vacate the premises. I remember coming home from work on his last day. He was busy packing things and had help from some of the girls he was with. It was not the same one he had given the spare key to. When he noticed me in the room, he stared daggers at me and only talked to the girl in a different language. I don't know whether it was Italian or Spanish. I go into my room and stay there until they leave. I was worried he would take the opportunity to beat me up and leave without a trace. I felt bad that he would have to pack up and leave the country in such a quick time. On the other hand, I would be rid of a roommate that could have ended all my roommates' program early. About a week later, I found out that he is living it up in Miami and was not deported after all. 2 weeks after that, we got another roommate. From Brazil. He turned out to be pretty chill until the end of my time with the program. So that's how I almost got my former roommate deported. And just to add, because I have been accused of being jealous of Gabe, I was a young gay guy just coming out in Orlando from a small town. There were plenty of gay guys that I was more interested in than Gabe. Too busy crushing on guys I was actually trying to talk to. I don't mean to shame him for whoever he would bring to the apartment either. I was hooking up with guys too, just not bringing them back, because I respected my other roommates and our space. Gabe was given warnings about the cans that he brought back, but that didn't stop. This is only my side of the story, but there were 3 other roommates who also had problems with him. Before I went to security, I asked my OG roommates what to do, and the decision ended up being to report him, and I did it. I can only speak on what my experience was with him. If I had known and realized that he could be deported, I wouldn't have gone through with it, and just dealt with his antics. Looking back on it now, that was definitely a bitchy thing to do. I'm not proud of it, but not fully ashamed either. I was a young, dumb, black 19-year-old who was a bit sheltered. It was my first time miles away from home, embracing my sexuality for the first time, and meeting people I would normally never meet. I definitely got a bit wild while I was there. It took a while for me to relax and not be so anxious about things. It didn't matter where he was from for me. He was being an inconsiderate roommate and breaking the rules, putting me and my other roommates at risk. Simply that. 4. About 20 years ago, I worked in a call center at a budding pavement processing company. The main performance metric was the time service factor, TSF, which required answering 80% of calls within 20 seconds. Due to a constant queue of calls, achieving this goal was impossible. Customers were unhappy, management was unhappy, the stage was set. Enter tech support. I was hired fresh out of high school to be the center's sole tech support and handle customer-facing application migrations. In retrospect, they basically brought me on as a project manager and systems consultant, but I didn't know any better. Unfortunately, our telephony system did not direct callers based on specialization and skill sets. So when customers called in specifically for tech support, there was a 1 in 15 chance of getting the lone tech support agent. Instead of investing in more tech support staff and overhauling the phone VRU menu, management decided the best system was to have representatives physically line up at my desk. It was frustrating and extremely overwhelming to balance my migration projects and the queue of callers that were waiting for me, so I adapted by remaining in Not Ready as much as possible. Not Ready means your line will only ring for direct calls, but only my team had my direct line. Things were going smoother in terms of handling tech calls, people were lining up less, but management was not happy that the TSF goal was not being met. Then one day, my lead pulled me aside and confronted me with my telephony stats. My Not Ready times were 10 times everyone else's, to which I reminded him that I'm the only technician. And if 14 other people were lined up at my cubicle, then they were clogging the lines with people on hold waiting for me. Management did not care. I had a special skill, but I was not special enough to be exempt from the metric. No more Not Ready. Cue malicious compliance. I pretended my Not Ready button no longer existed, and went about being a rank-and-file call center rep. The moment I was done with one call, I had to pick up the next. This meant during migration waves and outages, there were moments where my entire team was lined up at my desk waiting to transfer their callers to me. After about 10 to 15 minutes of just seething by my cubicle's window, some began to confront me. I explained that I was forbidden from using my Not Ready to keep my line open. The call queue would have to die down completely until my line was open to accept a transfer call. You could cut the tension with a knife. TSF continued to tank, then call abandon rates skyrocketed. Customers were unhappy, management was unhappy. So management did the obvious thing and hired more technicians, right? Right? Nope. First, the new protocol was to post a sticky note with the customer's callback number and ticket number on my desk. Tell the customer to expect my callback, hang up, then take the next call. From then on, I was expressly only allowed to conduct the callbacks when there were fewer than 10 callers on hold. Second, they took 2 of the regular call center boomers and sat them with me to job shadow. Third, they tasked my lead with standing over my shoulder to observe my daily activities. What I showed the team lead was that for every 2 or 3 tickets I closed out, 10 more callback tickets would roll in. What he actually ended up doing was reprimanding me for having a high RONA, rollover not answered, count, because I'd let some calls roll over if they snuck in while I was doing morning callbacks. Abject dismay, the nightmare finally ended with the mortgage crisis. Management's brilliant business acumen had led the company to insolvency. I jumped ship to complete my college education. Then the company shut down about a year later. 5. About 10 or so years ago, I went to a concert an hour away from me in Indianapolis. Decided to make a day of it, going to several museums and spots around the city, each time paying for parking in a garage for 2 or so hours, then going to meander around the area. Finally, I go park close to the venue and paid for parking until the time it was free. Total, I probably paid about $40 or $50 for parking throughout the day. Enjoyed the concert, but come back to a parking ticket on my car. I think, this is odd. But I'm tired and chalk it up to a mistake, but decide to take photos of my parking spot. Both spots on either side were taken, and all the signage, and head home for the evening, figuring I would sort it in the morning. The next morning I review the ticket, the photo of my spot, and my parking receipt. The ticket did not line up to the spot my car was located in, and my receipt shows that I had valid parking at the time of the ticket. So I submit an appeal thinking this will be easy. It's obvious that a mistake was made. The appeal was denied. The ticket was for the spot that was not paid for, ergo it stood. I called the office, and the lady said they did not make a mistake as my receipt showed that I paid for spot X1 and the ticket was for spot X. I asked about the photo proof that my car was in spot X1 and she said, "Well, you could have moved the car." Note that the parking receipt included my license plate number and everything, think Park Mobile-like system. I noted that the cars were in spots on either side of me and that the entire street was full because of the concert. And honestly, I don't think they bothered to look at the photo. Even had that not been the case, I had proof that the license plate had a paid parking spot, no matter what, no dice. I'm feeling pretty petty over this $25 parking ticket at this point. So I called Visa and asked if I could retract the amount I paid for the time that I had parked since it didn't count. I submitted all the evidence and documentation to Visa. Visa, in what was the greatest thing Visa has ever done, in my opinion, agreed that if my parking receipt and transaction number wasn't proof I had paid for parking, then clearly I had paid for a service I did not receive, and they extended my initial request of cancelling the one transaction to include all the parking spots I had paid for through the system that day, valued at more than the parking ticket. Then they filed a formal complaint on my behalf with a letter explaining that they were refunding me. It would not have been nearly as satisfying if I had not spent the entire day playing tourist in the city and racking up a large bill all with the same vendor. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 299. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do pop a like. And if you'd like to get the videos a little bit early, then you can support me through my Patreon, which is linked in the description. It's also on the screen right now. You'll also find a link to my merchandise store in the description. There's also a Discord link, if you're so inclined to join Discord. And you can make donations during streams and videos like this one. And while you don't have to, I appreciate it very much, and it helps me pay the bills. Alrighty, no other business, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, who is the newest or new to you comedian you've discovered that you enjoy? Easy one for me, it's a comedian called Matteo Lane. You can actually find, he has a YouTube channel, he's got a couple of specials up there for free for you to watch. Very entertaining, and also as a bonus, he does like a lot of cooking videos, many of which have pasta in them, which is also a bonus to me because I like cooking videos and I like pasta. So that's mine, and I look forward to reading yours. Comment below if there's any you're willing to share. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.